Jake saves. Marcus saves. Both of them believe the same thing. The bigger the cash cushion, the safer they are. They're both wrong, though, because there's a specific dollar amount where saving more, instead of investing it, stops being caution and starts being the single most expensive decision of their financial life. And once you cross that line, no amount of extra saving afterward can ever buy back what it costs you. Let's keep this fair. Jake and Marcus both earn $60,000 a year. Both have monthly expenses of exactly $5,000. Both commit to saving $1,000 a month, starting from zero, on the same day. Neither one touches a single dollar of it for anything but this experiment. The only difference between them is one decision. How much cash is enough before it's safe to start investing the rest? Marcus does the math most financial advisors recommend. 3 months of expenses, roughly $15,000, sitting in a normal savings account earning close to nothing. Once he hits that number, at month 15, every additional dollar goes straight into a total stock market index fund instead. Jake does something that sounds even more responsible. He decides $15,000 doesn't feel like enough. Neither does $25,000 or $50,000. Every time he gets close to a number that should feel safe, a new worry shows up, and the number creeps higher. He eventually settles on $150,000 in pure, guaranteed cash before he's willing to invest a single dollar. For the first year, there's no difference between them at all, 2 identical savings accounts, growing by exactly $1,000 a month. But at month 15, the paths split. Marcus stops adding to his emergency fund and starts investing. Jake keeps stacking cash. Fast forward to year 5. Jake's account reads $60,750, $60,000 of contributions, plus a few $100s of interest at a savings rate hovering around 0.5%. It's clean. It's guaranteed. It never goes down. Every time Jake checks his banking app, the number is exactly what he expects it to be, and that feeling of certainty is worth something you can't easily put a price on. Marcus's number is Messier. His $15,000 emergency fund sits untouched, now worth about $15,400. The other $52,300 is invested, and it moves. Some months it's worth $58,000. Some months it dips to $46,000 and stays there for a while, which is exactly the kind of swing that makes people abandon this plan entirely. Add it up, though, and Marcus is already sitting at roughly $67,700, about $7,000 ahead of Jake, at year 5, without anyone noticing. Nobody watching Jake and Marcus at this point would guess Marcus is winning. Jake's number feels bigger because it feels more real. Marcus's number is objectively bigger, and almost nobody would believe it. By year 10, the picture is harder to ignore. Jake has now saved for a full decade, $120,000 in contributions, plus roughly $1,800 in accumulated interest, for a total of about $121,800. Still all cash. Still perfectly safe. Still 50% short of the 6-figure comfort number he set for himself when he started. Marcus, meanwhile, has been investing for 8.5 years. His portfolio has grown to roughly $151,400, sitting on top of an emergency fund that's now worth close to $15,800. Combined, Marcus is at approximately $167,200. The gap has widened to $45,400. And Jake hasn't done anything wrong. He saved exactly what he said he would, every single month, without missing one. He's just been saving in the wrong place for 8.5 years. If he'd simply matched Marcus's rule, 3 months of expenses and nothing more, he would have crossed into investing a decade earlier, with over 100 extra months for the exact same $1,000 a month to compound. Here's where the story takes its sharpest turn. At month 150, 12.5 years after Jake started, his cash balance finally crosses $150,000. The number he decided, all the way back at the beginning, would finally feel like enough. He does the responsible thing. He moves the entire $150,000 into the same index fund Marcus has been using the whole time, and starts contributing his usual $1,000 a month going forward. On paper, Jake now has more invested up front than Marcus ever put in directly out of pocket. He should be catching up fast. Except he's not starting from zero. He's starting $83,800 behind. Marcus, at the exact same moment, has a portfolio worth $217,800, sitting on top of a $16,000 emergency fund untouched since month 15, a combined $233,800. Jake finally made the same decision Marcus made 12.5 years earlier. He's just making it with a smaller invested balance, at a later age, with over a decade less time for that money to compound. And here's the part that makes this permanent instead of temporary. From this exact point forward, both of them invest identically. Same fund, same contribution, same average return. The gap doesn't close. It grows. This is the part most people never see explained clearly, because it isn't really about how much you save. It's about what compounding actually rewards. Compounding isn't linear. It's not a savings account where $1,000 today is worth $1,000 tomorrow plus a little interest. In an investment account, money that's been growing for 20 years isn't just 20 times more valuable than money that's been growing for 1 year. It can be worth 80 or 100 times more, because every year of growth is calculated on top of every previous year of growth, not on top of the original amount alone. That's why Jake's extra $135,000 in cash, the difference between his $150,000 comfort number and Marcus's $15,000 emergency fund, never had a chance to catch up. It wasn't earning nothing exactly. At 0.5% a year, it was earning almost nothing, while sitting on the sidelines during the exact 12.5 years when compounding would have done the most work on it. There's a name for what happened to that $135,000, opportunity cost. It's the invisible cost of what your money could have earned somewhere else, and unlike a fee or a bill, it never shows up on a statement. Nobody sends Jake a notice that says, your extra caution cost you $83,800 as of this month. The number just quietly exists, unseen, until someone runs it. There's a second hidden cost stacked on top of the first, inflation. While Jake's $150,000 sat in cash for 12.5 years, prices were rising the entire time, typically averaging somewhere around 3% a year over long stretches. A dollar earning 0.5% while prices climb 3% isn't just failing to grow. It's losing purchasing power every single year it sits there. By the time Jake finally moved that money into the market, its real buying power was already meaningfully smaller than the day he first saved it, even though the number on the screen never went down. This isn't just Jake and Marcus's problem, either. Multiple surveys on retail saving behavior have found that a large share of people keep the bulk of their long-term savings sitting in checking and savings accounts well past the point their actual emergency fund is covered, often for years, simply because a bigger, steadier number feels safer than a volatile one. The math never asks how something feels. It only counts what happened to the money. Think of it like a snowball at the top of two identical hills. Marcus lets his snowball start rolling at month 15. Jake keeps his snowball sitting at the top of the hill, getting slightly bigger by hand, for 12.5 more years, before he ever lets it roll. By the time Jake's snowball finally starts moving, Marcus's has already rolled most of the way down the mountain, picking up size the entire way. Jake's snowball is bigger than Marcus's was on day one. It just doesn't matter anymore, because size at the start was never the variable that counted. Distance rolled was. If this is the first time you're seeing your own savings account this way, hit like. It helps this video reach someone who's still deciding how much is enough before they start. Let's finish the story. By year 25, Marcus's portfolio, built from a $15,000 head start invested for 23.5 years, plus consistent $1,000 monthly contributions, is worth approximately $846,600. Add his emergency fund, now worth about $17,000, and Marcus's total net worth from this single habit sits at roughly $863,600. Jake's investment, built from his $150,000 lump sum plus 12.5 years of the same $1,000 monthly contributions, has grown to approximately $662,800. The final gap, $200,800. Both men saved the exact same amount of money over 25 years. Both men eventually invested. Both men used the identical fund at the identical average return. The only difference between them was 12.5 years of when they started, and it cost Jake over $200,000 that he will never get back, no matter how large his contributions get from here. That's what the title of this video actually means. Past a certain point, saving more doesn't make compounding work harder for you. It makes it work less, because every extra year spent building an oversized cash cushion is a year compounding doesn't get to use. The saving wasn't wasted. It just stopped being useful the moment it went past what Jake actually needed for safety. If I only showed you the downsides of Jake's approach, I wouldn't be giving you the full picture, because there are real, specific situations where holding more cash than a textbook emergency fund is the objectively correct move, not an emotional overreaction. If your income is irregular, commission-based sales, freelance work, running a small business, a 3-month cushion can evaporate in a single slow quarter. Many financial planners recommend 6 to 12 months of expenses in cash specifically for variable income. And that's not caution, that's math matching an unpredictable paycheck. If you're planning a large purchase in the next 2 to 3 years, a house down payment, a wedding, starting a business. That money has no business being in the stock market. A market downturn at the exact moment you need the cash isn't a risk you can afford to take with a short timeline, regardless of the long-term average return. And if you know, honestly, that you're the kind of investor who panic sells during a downturn, a smaller invested amount that you actually hold on to through a crash will always outperform a larger invested amount that you sell at the bottom out of fear. The math favors investing. The math also assumes you don't sabotage it. One more case worth naming directly. If you're within 5 years of retirement, the calculation changes again. A market drop right before you need to start withdrawing can force you to sell at the worst possible time, something called sequence of returns risk. In that specific window, a larger cash buffer isn't overcaution. It's protecting a retirement date you can't push back. So what's the actual number? The amount of saving that makes compounding pointless for most people? There isn't one single dollar figure that applies to everyone, because it scales with your expenses, not some fixed target that sounds impressive on its own. For most people with stable income and no major purchase on the immediate horizon, 3 to 6 months of expenses is the number where the emergency fund has done its job. Every dollar past that point, sitting in an account earning 0.5% for more than a year or two, is a dollar compounding never gets to touch. It's not lost. It's just parked somewhere it can never grow the way it was capable of growing. One quick fix worth naming, even if it doesn't solve the core problem. If you are holding cash beyond what you actually need, at minimum, don't let it sit in an account paying 0.5%. High-yield savings accounts and money market funds have paid between 4 and 5% in recent years, federally insured, with same-day access. That alone wouldn't have closed Jake's gap. The difference between 0.5% and even 5% is still nowhere near an 8% average stock market return compounding for 12.5 years. But it would have meaningfully softened the damage. Had Jake earned 4.5% instead of 0.5% on his build-up, his $150,000 target would have grown closer to $172,000 along the way, which narrows, but doesn't erase, the 12.5-year head start Marcus already had. Jake and Marcus both walked away from this feeling like they'd made the responsible choice. Jake thought more saved meant more safe. Marcus thought stopping at exactly what he needed and investing the rest was the disciplined move. Neither of them sat down and calculated what 12.5 extra years of caution would actually cost. The real trap here was never saving, and it wasn't investing. The real trap was letting the number that counts as enough quietly move every time Jake got close to it. 10,000, then 25, then 50, then 150, without ever writing down a real, calculated reason for the new target. Every one of those upward revisions felt like discipline in the moment. None of them were checked against what the money was actually costing him to hold. That's a decision anyone can make in an afternoon. Figure out your actual monthly expenses, multiply by 3 to 6 depending on how stable your income is, and treat that specific number, not a feeling, as the finish line for your cash savings. And if you're wondering what happens when someone does this in reverse, invests aggressively first, then builds their cash cushion later, that's a completely different conversation, and the order might matter more than you'd expect. But for now, look at your own savings account and ask yourself one question. Is that number actually protecting you? Or is it just a number that used to feel safe and never got questioned again?